Bring back Joshi and Desiree after we got to hear from Ayla.
How is
The
it?
Bradley flanks are so good regardless if he's on the rift or
He's
not.
flanking on camera, he's flanking in game. You never know where he's going to flank. Might be at the grocery store and you're just getting milk and Bradley comes up to you and says, "Where are the eggs?" No, but in all actuality, it's always such a pleasure to hear from Ayla. He's so well spoken, and he's really willing to talk about kind of his ideas behind the scenes as well. And it was a little bit of a lighter interview, but it's still nice to see their heads are in the right direction. They're screwed on straight. They're able to pull back wins when they need to, and just really nice to see them pull out a 2-0 victory in that fashion. Joshi.
But you didn't tell him Dirty Harry.
Didn't. I mean,
I didn't tell
they can go back. They can go back and see it. We will see what they have to say about all the different options for nicknames we have for him throughout the rest of the season. There will be more opportunities. Yeah. What was it? How's it going?
How's it? Who knows?
Look, it sounds like an OS thing. I will look it up. I will Google it later, and we will report back.
We will have to report back. But now, speaking of reporting, we got to go ahead and move on to the reporting of TSM Academy versus Immortals Progressive Academy, because this matchup in particular, volatility will be king. Craziness will be king, it feels like. And especially when you're looking at this Immortals roster, when you're looking at the attempted comeback, some of the comfort we've seen from the bottom lane, it just all needs to come together in this last week, Joshi.
It really does. And looking towards the end of it, right, they are fairly close. They are now 3 games behind FlyQuest, as FlyQuest did 2-0 Dignitas over on the Path to LCS stream. And unfortunately for the TSM squad, that means that they are now out of contention in order to try and make their way into the top 6. They will be playing in the play-in stage of Proving Grounds, but Immortals still have a chance to try and make their way up. And we said that TSM might have a chance playing up against a 7, 8, and 10. Immortals have a very realistic chance of actually trying to win a bunch of their games.
They really do. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. We're looking at their upcoming opponents. Even with the FlyQuest series tomorrow, there's still some very potential upsides to the matches that they have coming up here, Desirex.
Yeah, I mean, okay. There is a fighting chance coming out of them. This is like one of the bloodiest teams we've ever had, and they're fighting a lot of the more chaotic teams that we have in here. So I'm willing to look at each and every one of these series and just flip a coin and be like, heads or tails? All right, heads, Immortals, tails, TSM. Yeah. At this point, we are in the end game.
We are in the end game. Yeah, but I mean, this is perfect for Immortals, right? If they want to try and make their way into the top 6 and get that first round bye, they have to do it against the teams that are currently neck and neck for that spot, right? These 3 teams, Immortals, FlyQuest, and Dignitas, all end up playing each other this week. They will have a big shakeup, and Immortals, the best way to try and catch up to a team is to play them and to beat them. And so Immortals, I feel like they're set up for potential success, and the success is almost entirely in their own hands.
And we're going to look at some plays from Immortals as well while we continue to talk about them and kind of dissect this team a little bit more. I just love the fact that we have seen the possibility of comfort, but as well as the spiciness coming out of the bottom lane of Arrow and Joy. I know I foreshadowed to it earlier, but it feels like you really need, Chad to get off the ground, Pretty to carry, and Arrow and Joey to have some stability in the bottom lane, Desiree.
I mean, Evil Geniuses foreshadowed it earlier with that Draven pick. Arrow and Joey showing up down here, yeah. You need to see a lot of presence over there. I think you need to see a lot of presence overall towards Immortals on an aspect that is more than just mechanical, because every single one of these lanes, I feel like, has a lot of mechanical prowess. They are skilled. When Immortals wins, they just outhands their opponents. But the thing is, you can't keep doing that, right? We need to see actual macro play. It can't just be, let's see what Chad's able to do in the early game. If he fails, okay, all is lost now.
Yeah, and when you're looking across the table against them, it is TSM Academy. And speaking of hands, we got some pretty mechanically gifted members here for them as well. And I believe that it will be a change today.
Yeah.
So I believe that graphic in the bottom is wrong, because it'll be Soul moving back down to the Academy roster with the rest of them, as we did see, get to see them coming through here and get to see the amount of iterations that we've seen for TSM Academy, Joshi.
Yeah, there have been a lot of changes between spring and summer, right? You take a look over at Immortals, you got Concept, You got Vital, you got Arrow, you got Wild Turtle, right? Not a whole lot of changes. But look at everything that TSM has done. They've even changed their photos for their players, right? Takeover, he's got the side profile. Now he's looking at you dead on, but he's the only player. I say he's the only player to have not changed. He had an opportunity to play up in LCS where he was being replaced for a little by Kaidua, but so far everybody on TSM has changed at least once so far in 2022. So many different permutations coming through, and now that Soul is back and Solo is going to be playing in LCS for a little while, this is where we can see what kind of growth Soul actually had while he was getting tutored by Huni.
I like the way you put that, Josh. It also makes it sound like TakeOver has survived the TSM Hunger Games. He's the last one standing here right now. But I do like Soul coming back down. This was something that was very willing for him. It was something that was, I was personally a little bit worried about when he was called up. But, I'm pretty sure we got a little bit more to say about that in just a moment, Zell.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. We'll get to see a little bit of TSM on the Rift in that action as well here, Joshi.
Yeah, and TSM is definitely a team where, for a little while now, I've been looking at Anda, the control jungler that is here to rival Armeo, has been kind of the heart and soul of TSM so far in the second half of the round robin. He's been looking fantastic with all of the flanks that he's been able to go for, but Takeover is the one consistent member that they've had throughout this entire time, and he gets a lot of setup from both junglers, right? He gets a lot of ganks to come through. They've been able to take down Harry. They take down players like Triple, people who are known for having stronger laning phases. They're consistently coming out ahead in this because of how much attention their junglers are giving him.
I mean, even with the rough performance TSM has been having, TakeOver is still putting out completely outstanding stats that are only really consistently bested by Harry. That says a lot for what is happening in the mid lane for TSM.
No, it absolutely does. I think you have to look at a lot of the time when we see the mechanical hands that we've been talking about, some of those outplays, some of that volatility. It does come from a lot of those stemming issues, and I'm really excited to see how this matchup, especially kickoff week 7, works out for both TSM and Immortals, because it could lead to a lot to finish out the regular season for both of them. So I'm very excited. We are ready for Champ Select to kick off our final series of the day, so let's see what happens.
Woo!
All right, Josh.
We've had so many entire series just because Lennon said that.
We've had so many iterations. So many different iterations. Yeah, close your eyes. It's all right. It's all right. We'll do this Champ Select blind.
Okay,
we have so many different iterations. What do you feel about this one, Josh? Because personally, for me, I like it. I like what I see on the table. I like that Soul's back.
I like that Soul's back. I feel as though Anda's definitely been showcasing that he deserves a spot in Academy, right? He's played on teams like NoWork before. He played for TSM in summer, right? Last split? Yeah. Or last year, right? And then he went back. He played a little bit with NoWork again alongside Viper. And
no, it was Immortals, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, Immortals. That's what it was. And so we get to see a lot of different versions of Anda come through, and he's consistently performing quite well. But now, I feel that he is being paired up with Soul, who's a little bit more volatile than Solo. And if he can get TakeOver to be ahead, it really makes TakeOver look very good. Because just as we've been looking with a lot of our other players, I kind of look at players like Shaden. When Shaden has good early games, he looks fantastic for the rest of the game. When Shaden doesn't have good early games, you kind of ask where he's been the entire time. And I feel very similarly when I look at TakeOver, right? If TakeOver has good early games, he's typically just going to be very quietly carrying the game. He doesn't actually make that many big plays. He's just typically standing in good positions and doing the DPS he needs to.
Now, for the top side, when it comes to Soul versus Vital into this one, the thing I've always really liked about Soul is he's someone who's willing to absorb a lot of damage and react to it in the right way. He play towards the weak side in the right way. In those very early weeks that we had Soul on TSM, he did get tested against the likes of Tenacity, Darshan, and so on and so forth, and he lasted all right. It wasn't just stomp out lanes. He was able to farm decently well and still put on pretty good performances. Now he's back here in Academy looking to develop even more. So we head back into the draft and look at what's getting picked up here. Immortals Progressive. Chad is not going to pick anything spicy this time. He's just quelling it down to the Trundle alongside the Aphelios.
Yeah. And this is definitely another spot where I feel Soul can really shine, right? Vital has been statistically the weakest laner in top lane so far that we have been seeing in Academy. And Soul, he just got done playing against a bunch of LCS players, as you talked about, playing up against Tenacity and Darshan. And so now is his opportunity to come back and look to push around Vital, even if he doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of resources, because Chad doesn't necessarily play with Vital a whole lot early on in the game unless there's an invade that they can make onto their opponent's red buff. And because they're on the red side, it's not easy for Vital to necessarily help him out with that play.
All right, the next lock-in coming through is going to be the Zeri onto the side of TSM Academy. So already showing that that's going to go into the hands of Tactical. And with that pickup, it's been a while since we've seen him play this. I believe he's only played it once through the season so far in Academy. I'll have to double check onto that one, but already getting strong lock-in. I honestly, with the draft so far on the side of TSM Academy, I like what they have. The Azir, Zeri, Poppy, this is all clicking.
They have a lot of range to play with. They have a front line in the Poppy to create some space for them. And it's on Immortals to try and disrupt that a little bit. The Trundle kind of really going to struggle to find their way in. And we also saw Harry having a good job controlling Surdy on the Gnar previously. So now Takeover has to do a similar thing to Vital. And with the composition that they've already drafted for themselves, it feels as though, well, Chad is going to become very tanky. He's not necessarily going to be able to make the same kind of plays as he typically does on things like the Wukong or Viego that he's played way more than this Trundle.
So seeing Vital on the Gnar, this is going to be his second time playing in the season. First time he played it against Team Liquid, and that didn't go too well over there. How do you feel about him being on the Gnar? Because we know he doesn't have the best laning, but his play has always been around the team fights, and Gnar has great team fight ultimate.
Yeah, I mean, Gnar, again, like, if this is your first time coming around, I've played more Gnar every season for the past 6 years, right? I've been playing this champion since Season 5. Shout out to Riot Affik, who's on the game test team. He actually taught me how to play the champion. But this is a champion where if you have a bad laning phase, you can still come back, but you need to do it as, like, a Chad, right? You need to be right up in their face. You need to be creating pressure in a lot of these team fights. And that's not typically how Vital tends to play a lot of these fights. He always looks for flanks, but he doesn't always necessarily know how to make his way in there. It's more about whether or not the fight sets up for him to naturally come in for a flank. And so if Vital has a tough laning phase going up against Soul, he can come back, but it would require him to have had growth between now and the last time I saw him.
Of course, always nice to have that input from our resident Gnar aficionado here. Yeah, I mean, the best play we've seen from Vital on the top side when it comes to team play has typically been the Yone. It's a very easy ultimate to be able to have an impact when it comes to those team fights. Gnar, of course, still has that impactful ultimate. It just needs more setup with the Mega Gnar bar and actually getting into the middle of the team. The next picks do come in. For Immortals Progressive, they are taking the victor over into the mid lane, and the response out of TSM is to send Soul into that matchup against Vital with Gwen.
Why? That's a very odd choice to me, I'm gonna be real, right? This Gwen is not particularly exciting into the Gnar. You already have a lot of magic damage coming out from your composition, right? You have Azir, who does almost strictly magic damage. You have Gwen now, who's going to be doing magic damage. And you have Zeri, who does about 60-40 physical magic, and so suddenly you're allowing Immortals to really start stacking a lot more magic resist in these upcoming team fights. And so Soul's really going to have to outplay what is typically expected in this matchup, push Vital around and find these advantages, because TSM Academy, they're typically looking to kite back very effectively, but the rest of their composition outside of their backline doesn't necessarily do a good job at like holding position. Gwen can sit in that circle, but you want to be going either forward or backwards. You really like moving fights, and Poppy is not necessarily going to be all that much better at creating a situation where nothing is moving, because they can't sit there and just take damage from Victor and Aphelios either.
How do you feel about this Bard getting locked in now? This is something that in Proving Grounds, it has been starting to pop up all of a sudden. Last time it was paired along with the Zeri. Absolutely disgusting, because you basically get 2 magical journeys off of this one. This time, going to be paired with the Aphelios, and the first thing that clicks to me is I like the fact that it does have good peel for that Aphelios.
Yeah, I mean, it gives them some primary engage, right? You throw it out, and if you hit anybody, you are going to be creating a situation where suddenly the Trundle Pillar and the Gnar can just get on top of them and really prevent them from moving. But it also feels as though both these teams are just going to be going for a lot of skirmishing, a lot of scrapping. It's not necessarily the full-on team fights that Immortals wants to opt into. They want to find outman fights. They want to use the bar to have a lot of impact early on in the game, because both these teams are going to kind of struggle to actually get back in if the other team controls the dragons first.
Man, but I'm just looking at like ideal situations, and of course I like to like kind of brainstorm around those because it's just fun to have your fantasy team fights, really. But I do see situations where you can have the Tempered Fate set up so much team fight for Immortals Progressive. I look at that Mega Gnar. If Vital can get in there and be that team fight power that he has been in the past for Immortals Progressive, there is some brilliant setup there. We'll have to see, because the rift is now ready between TSM Academy and Immortals Progressive Academy. As we hit this game again, this is a big contention for Immortals more than anyone else, who's still battling for that top end. Unfortunately, TSM Academy locked into the gulag.
The gulag, is it? All right.
Yeah, that's what we call it in amateur.
Oh, okay. Well, they are going to be in the gulag then a little bit, as they do have to play that extra best of 3 in order to get into Proving Grounds proper. And Mia and Joey, you know, just harassing each other a little bit. Not going to be seeing the same kind of wild level 1s as we saw in our previous series, right? Team Liquid, Evil Geniuses, kind of setting the stage and just going buck wild. But Chad actually messaged me fairly recently, and he was questioning something I said, where I said that XU doesn't lose 50-50 smites. And they pulled up, I believe it's Oracle's Elixir data on like how many dragons had actually, or how many objectives had actually been stolen. And, you know, XU
that is petty.
In summer. No, I mean, Chad and XU, they go for each other, man. I absolutely love that relationship. But it's definitely a spot where, you know, maybe I'm overstating it. You know, make sure you do hold us accountable. But it's definitely a position where it feels as though we have so many memories of XU with a bunch of big steals back to back to back. And now Chad, it's his turn to prove us wrong. Now, the thing is, you don't want to have to make steals, right? Because that means you don't control them. You shouldn't have gotten them. You are stealing them. But Chad also now looking to try and upset that, get a couple more 50-50 smites of his own, and already going for some early game shenanigans a little bit. Not going to be going for a full clear. This is Chad going for his patented 3-camp gank.
Yeah, this is very standard for Chad. He likes to get creative with the with his entire approach to the jungle, honestly. I had a talk with him before, and he said he's just trying to create his own thing. He's just trying to be his own player. That's why he got so prominent with that Rengar pick. That's why he followed it up with the Kha'Zix pick. With this play that he's going, the biggest problem we've seen come from that development is he kind of coin flips a lot early. He kind of goes for these big plays early that have big implications on Immortals Progressive doing well. It's affected the way Immortals have played out these early games. They've had very rough early games relative to any other team in Academy.
Yeah, it's because they're so flippy, right? Like, when it goes well, it goes very well. When it goes poorly, it goes very poorly.
Terrible.
And yeah, it is very bad. But Chad, you know, he got spotted, doesn't see any opportunity for a gank bottom lane, and will be shifting right on back towards the top side after he gets spotted out doing his grunt. We're seeing a couple pings. Curious what the ping towards the wave means. It definitely has Chad walking towards the bottom lane to try and make something happen anyway.
Staying down here. I don't know.
Waiting for the crab, I think.
Yeah. Can't imagine you can find too much of a gank here. Yeah, there's not really much tools. I mean, get a Cosmic Binding, stun, sure. A lot of ground that Chad has to go through, so he grabbed the scuttle. He's still down here.
He's still down here. And going for a full clear. We saw this earlier with Heavy, you know, trying to make things happen very aggressively. And Shaden just farmed. Was like, yeah, okay, well, I'm going to be just fine. And now Anda, well, if Trundle's not going to take us Raptors, I guess I have to.
That's the risk right there.
Burden, right?
Chad is always willing to do, right? He will skip a lot of those camps to try and get those early ganks. But now, Anda's just like, well, okay, yeah, this belongs to me. I will cash in on these, no problem. Meet you at your golem, see what's going to be up there.
Yep, there's so many wards already getting put down by TSM early on in Chad's jungle. He gets spotted crossing over, doing the Krugs.
And it's that little bit of interaction in the bot lane of Chad just camping down there that set this up. And it seems like very little, but it really is impactful to the way Anda's playing.
Yeah. It means a lot more for Soul, right? If he knows where the jungler is, he can play this lane very aggressively, already getting a 10 CS lead, and it's basically a true lead at this point, right? As Soul just casually beating up on Vital as he now has the wave coming back towards him because he knows Chad is there, doesn't want to be too aggressive. Feels as though Soul is just laning this quite well up against, the Immortals top laner.
Yeah, he's had a lot of time to develop throughout Academy. Of course, had that rush over towards LCS, and we were afraid he was going to kind of get the Niles treatment.
We were afraid Philip was going to get the Niles treatment, but Philip has been doing well.
Yeah. And I think Soul had a pretty fantastic debut, all things considered, even with the later games that went off. He just wants to make sure his development is in the right place and that he's taking that path the right way.
Yeah. I respect the decision, right? We always kind of expected that Solo was going to have an opportunity to play LCS again. But with that said, TSM and Immortals, this might be the first time they really come to blows as Chad going to commit to taking this dragon.
Alright, now look at Soul jumping right onto Vital right here. Gonna burn that Ghost and go for the 1v1 solo kill. A little bit of a clip off the top and first blood secured in the top side. Soul will get away.
Soul will get away, and he also gets a freeze. It forces a teleport out from Vital, but the rest of his team forces Immortals off the dragon, and now, this is what we're saying, right? Chad, he flips a lot early on in the game. He's not able to get the dragon, and now he's finding himself 2-3 camps behind already.
With that solo kill topside, I want to throw back to the last time these two teams did face off, Soul versus Vital. It was before Soul did go to the LCS. So he had a tie. He did have a matchup against Vital, and I think it's an interesting thing to look at because both of these players are rookies, right? They're both in their first year in Academy. To see how they're developing. In that first game, they went relatively even. There's only one solo kill that went off, Vital getting the better of that. Now they're dead even in solo kills. Soul is looking like the more developed player with all the experience he's gathered and playing his lane states.
Well, we should also kind of keep in mind where these players came from before they actually started playing, right? Like Soul, well, he didn't have a ton of experience in the amateur scene before he joined. He had been playing for several months on Immortals AoE with, a real coaching staff for a little while.
And in the UPL with Wildcard, who is really known for developing a lot of amateur players.
Exactly. So, when you have Brandini helping to coach you, when you have this kind of practice, Soul should be expected to be leveling up faster.
Wow. What a nasty invade from Anda. The petty tower. I'm not gonna get it, but damn you.
You know the players who when you're getting jumped on in your own jungle and you're getting invaded and they're like, oh my god, this guy is so cringe. What's going on? Here's looking at you, Rafa. Chad's definitely the kind of guy who's just like, ugh, can't believe this idiot's coming into my jungle trying to take away my things. Fine. But at least Chad isn't going in and dying for it, right? I feel like that is a development that we have seen. Chad used to die for those red buffs.
Here's one of the nice things about this Bard, but there's a nice thing about the Zeri. A little bit of a contrast in the magical journeys taken there. Just going for the play topside now, actually, is Anda focusing onto Vital. Set up here, gathering the tower echo. Will be Anda to start this one off. Gets out in time, and one more auto coming out from Soul, but not fast enough to drop the turret aggro. Will be a 1-for-1 trade. Look at the mid lane, however. Takeover, getting the kill on the pretty.
And also, as we rotate a bunch of members up, TSM will try and get pressure into the mid lane, but Joey should be able to just hop a wall here.
Joey's fine.
Yeah, he's fine. Yeah. But good play from Vital, right? Turning that around. It took Anda and Soul way more than they wanted to commit to actually pick up that kill. And it allows him to actually trade back, right? Getting the solo kill onto Soul.
There we go. Going right onto Joey, who flashes away. It's going to force out the flash out of Tactical, which means he has no way out of this. A flash forward from Arrow. And unfortunately for Arrow, he was not the one to get the kill. The Ignite ticked down. So overall, got to give that up a little bit more to TSM. Arrow just couldn't cash in, but he will be getting this farm, will push in this wave.
Arrow going to be the big recipient, right? You saw Tactical spending a lot of time in the mid lane, but we get to see the kill yet again. It's actually Tactical comes in and does most of the damage, it feels like, which does explain why he was there in the first place. But here, just looking for an opportunity to fight onto Joey. They thought they could kill him. They were so close, but the Q missing, forcing Tactical to flash forward instead of away. Gives Arrow all he needs in order to try and run down the Zeri, and getting a lot of damage onto Mia as well. And so far, now, I'll be real, the Tactical and Mia combination has not necessarily been living up to what I was hoping. Tactical was, for a while, considered one of the better AD carries in the LCS, and it feels like such a fall from grace.
Yeah, he hasn't been performing up to snuff.
Oh.
And it's been a shame. Now looking over towards his top side. Soul with the 1v1 onto Vital. Vital gonna get the Goomba Stomp to get towards the tower, but Soul is not done. Will pop that R and trim him down. Soul with authority on that top side, taking it to his fellow rookie.
Oh boy, Soul did something very, very tricky there that I really like seeing. And when we get the replay to come back, for now, it does give enough priority for them to pick up the Rip Herald, and TSM feel confident enough to push around and look at the lead Dan has already picked up over Chad. Because his lanes haven't necessarily had priority, because Pretty went down, because Vital has died multiple times, Chad, he can't keep pace with Enda's farming, and he's starting to fall behind on this Trundle.
He's so far behind right now. To the point where he's just over in this top lane catching the wave that was going to be wasted to the turret anyway. Still trying to catch up over there. We are going to get another look. Joshi, go ahead and break this down for us.
Yeah, okay, so Soul, you see as he's running forward, he dipped down. The reason why he does that after watching Vital move towards the left is, one, he's trying to make sure that Vital can't hop on his head and has more time to actually hit him, but two, he's just trying to throw off where Vital's cursor is, right? You would expect that Soul would just be moving directly towards the right, towards Vital's turret, but Soul mixes it up a little bit, and you saw that Vital was walking backwards, one, to either get the hop, or two, trying to get the auto attack, and that small difference is enough to keep Soul in range and actually find a kill.
I love that, Josh. I absolutely love that, because we're seeing the real growth of Soul throughout this entire year. He used to be just a tank player back in the days of wildcard gaming. His champion pull has developed so much. His microplay has developed so much, and it's on display here in this 1v1 versus Vital. As we take a look at what's going on over here in the mid lane, though, a little bit of a setup coming from Immortals, looking for that magical journey with Chad.
They're both chilling there. I mean, everybody knows where everybody is, right? Mia saw them walk in, and Joey and Chad waiting for Mia to go for something with the red trinket. Now they run into each other again.
All right, not against the wall. Handa can't get the slam. Joey will be safe. So just standing on other sides of the wall, kind of whispering to each other, getting that trash talk. But the moment you lift the cage, it's kind of like the small dogs barking at each other. They just stop and walk away.
Yeah, you open it up and they just kind of, you know, lick each other. Yeah, it's all good. And this is my ward.
Oh, dog's angry now. Oh, they're getting mauled, and goes right back into Joey. Bark, bites the ankles and tears it off.
They end up getting one as shortly before the Dragon, look at all the vision control that TSM had picked up for themselves. They're dropping the Rift Herald mid as well, trying to take over some of this gold. And now Anda walking behind.
Oh boy.
Okay, doesn't go for the dive.
Not going to look for her now. It's just the cash into the tower plays. Yeah, would have been very bold right there. I mean, he didn't know where Chad was at the time. He could have been anywhere. I'm pretty sure that factored into the decision big time.
Oh, for sure. But you also get a little bit of gold. Takeover has a teleport, so as he backs away, he will not be late for this fight and should have completed Leandri's, whereas Pretty, because he made a stop off for the Mercury Treads, will not be close to that mythic item in the upcoming fight. And so, TSM, Takeover stuck around. He's gonna be late. He must have just been like a little bit of gold short if he really wanted to pick up the last couple of minions. Oh no, he had plenty of gold. Ooh. It's all about the mid prio. And now, maybe a little bit late. Oh, who cares?
Oh, TSM aren't going after the Dragon. They're going after the fight. They find a straggler all the way down in the bottom lane. That's going to be Arrow by his lonesome men. You don't need to contest around Dragon positioning if you can just make them a man down and have more friends. Right, Josh?
Yeah, exactly. Have more friends. You just kill them. And now Joey trying to harass Takeover, but Victor Bard shouldn't almost ever be able to take down this Azir by themselves. And now TSM equalizing on the Dragons. Game, it feels like a weird combination of some of our previous games, right? Where we saw some very quiet games, but very explosive. This has mostly just been TSM finding picks on IMT as they rotate around, and of course Soul with a couple of kills onto Vital up in the top lane. Feels as though TSM are just playing very simply better and catching out a lot of small mistakes coming out from IMT.
Just a quiet explosion, I suppose, is Mia looking to get away. He'll pop the ultimate, but Joey takes a magical journey. A shortcut will provide a cosmic binding to stun up Mia. There's the keeper's verdict away. Yeeted right away with that punt. That will keep Joey alive over in that bottom lane.
That's what kind of what we're looking at, right? Like IMT not able to make the picks happen, whereas TSM have been so far. And now Takeover, he knows there's a bunch of people on the bottom side of his lane. He cheats towards the top side, and slowly they're building up leads everywhere, right? The turret plate's going over to Takeover. He got a bunch of gold there. Solo with multiple kills. The bottom lane also with multiple kills, catching out Arrow in their most recent engagement. It feels as though IMT, they were trying to find something cheeky with Chad. He spent a lot of time towards the bottom lane, and because it didn't happen, now, it almost feels like they ran out of ideas.
Then what is the idea to make? Chad is really far behind right now. I mean, level deficit, CS deficit. It feels like you're looking for plays. I mean, you do have some scaling options. It could click into team fight orientation. That's just tough, because at this point you're just really hoping that ultimate is going to provide you all those stats to still be significant in team fights.
Yeah. No, so we have another opportunity for a shout out to Moms, Vital Love, and Twitch chat. Probably here as well. Shout out to Moms there. Your son's got to make a big play. Vital needs to be the difference maker here. He needs to try and find some of these flanks, because that's their primary way of getting action to happen. They need to create space for Pretty and Arrow.
Okay, Chad's going in. He's all by his lonesome into 3. Joey can do nothing but really watch in horror. He'll take the magical journey, but provide one for Chad. Slammed against the wall, though, as Takeover catches him. Now Soul right onto Arrow, and it will follow soon.
Oh
and
my gosh, he lives.
So quick on the fight. Takeover will stay alive in the grand scheme of things.
And Mia with the double shields coming through, able to keep Takeover alive. Now Vital, he will get some damage on this turret, but plates are gone. It's not going to be gold, it's just going to be damage, and Soul will be able to pick up this bottom lane turret in all likelihood. But this is, again, another spot where TSM just catching out IMT. What are they fighting for? A crab. They overextend, and now Takeover just going to be running in. They pick off individual members, and even though Arrow tries to make a play, doesn't have the damage.
And when Immortals have won from being in this situation, it has been where they just out-mechanically skill opponents.
Yeah.
This is pretty much all they're hoping for it right now. Pretty's done it so many times in the past. His Talia was one of the most disgusting things that brought Immortals back from the depths many times before. With this gold lead, though, that window is getting more and more closed. Victor has a hard time being as prominent on the map as we've seen with some other champions, like Bradley jumping around with the Akali. Still can be a very, very vicious team fighter on that end. But it's not exactly the hands champion is what I think of when I see Victor.
And you know me as a Gnar player. You know what my most played champion this season is, Eric?
I want to guess Gnar since you just said Gnar.
Nah, it's not Gnar. I actually haven't played a lot of top lane this season.
What is it?
I've been playing Victor.
Victor!
Victor is kind of a low agency champion, let's be real, right?
Yeah.
Like, he did a decent job in the first couple of levels, and so he got to play between levels 3 and 9, which is oftentimes where the Victor struggles, especially before he gets the Evolve to come through on his E. But because he's not really far ahead, he doesn't necessarily have the damage to one-shot people. He can try and kite them out, but it's very difficult for him to get fights and force the opponents to continue fighting him in the Chaos Storm. It is very obvious where Pretty is able to damage, because it's exactly where the big floating eye is, and everybody's like, oh, I don't want to stand under that. That looks scary. And it allows a lot of people to just leave Victor. You require a lot of setup from other players, and I feel like Pretty's ability to be the carry of this game is not necessarily likely to come through, because he doesn't have the seismic shove on this character.
TSM pushing into the jungle of Immortals Progressive Academy. And Immortals Progressive, it's just completely on the defensive for them. Still trying to get Pretty to farm up over on that bottom side, but you're losing structures, you're losing ground on the map. Takeover in the top lane is pushing in that wave. Immortals trying to respond, but TSM have brought in the whole family. They're in the van right now, SUV driving straight towards this top side. Weigel ticking closer towards that Mega Gnar, so it might dissuade TSM.
We'll be backing out. Remember, there's a dragon spawning relatively soon. And don't be fooled, it's not an ocean dragon. It is Hex Tech yet again. blessed by Riot Games right now with one of the most interesting dragons and one of the most interesting rifts that we see on the map. Takeover as a teleport, and everybody else at TSM already moving towards the bottom lane. Soul will be able to teleport back relatively quickly, and look at how quickly Mia is able to move on the map with those Hextech gates. Vital. Gotta be careful there, buddy.
Solo.
Whew. No, he's on the LCS team.
Got me on that one. Got me on that one. But with that recall coming in from Vital, that tower is starting to look weaker and weaker. Unfortunately, for TSM, Immortals are going to send their bot lane over to catch that wave, so not being able to take it down. But still, TSM, I mean, they're sending members back left and right. They get priority pretty much anywhere they step foot in, and it's going to result in another dragon being picked up by TSM. Taking a look at objectives, Baron's going to be the next one to spawn. Can't expect them to go after that too early. They don't exactly have the highest Baron damage. It does scale up a little bit later, though, to be something monstrous.
Yeah.
So we'll see when we're able to get control on towards that side of the map. But for Immortals, it's just been a lot of turtling.
Well, as they turtle, eventually Victor will be doing crazy damage, but he's a little way out, a little ways away from that right now. But let's take a look a little bit more about how these teams are trying to look towards Perfect Dragons, right? You know, shout out to our friend Alk Battery. He does, you know, stats on what casters are casting which wings, and so, you know, recently we did discover that I cast my first Team Liquid loss, so it's no longer Team Liquid versus Team Liquid. But I also cast none of the games in Immortals' big losing streak, right, where they lost 10 games in a row before turning it around against Golden Guardians. And this team has been slipping, and it's unfortunately slipping at what feels like the worst time as you start looking towards the end of the season. You know, this team, most of this team, 4 members of this team, made it to top 4 in Proving Grounds Spring. This team is now going to be playing, is more likely to play in the play-ins than they are to be playing in the top half and getting that extra series of buffer where they don't need to worry about elimination. It feels like a long fall from where they were previously.
Yeah, and again, like, these players are mechanically gifted. Each and every one of them, in a nutshell, I look at Chad, Vital, Pretty, Arrow, Joey, each and every one of them sound fantastic. I look at this team on paper, it sounds fantastic. Can they make a fantastic play, though, as Vital gets a Meganar ultimate and finds the pick onto Anda. Now Tactical will hop away towards the back end to get back to the safety of his team. Chad has to run away, and so does Vital, because health bars are far too low, and Takeover has arrived. Will claim the mid lane. Soul follows through onto the magical journey, but it's a journey to hell, as he will be sent to the grave, sent to the respawn. Now Immortals looking for the bounce back. They're going towards TSM, but Tactical is holding the line with those autos. Joey's cannot punish him. There's some fight left in Immortals. Let's see what they can do with it.
They do get a kill. They do go 2 for 1. That's decent gold coming right on back for Immortals, but they're still down 6,500 gold. They still haven't been able to pick up a structure. But as we take another look at this, you know, Anda trying to keep himself safe, but it's just too far for TSM after this fight, right? They are able to pick up the first kill, but then they try and follow through the magical journey. Soul's like, yeah, I'm full HP. What's the worry? Well, it's red-white. Don't fight. Arrow just shreds him immediately on the backside of the magical journey, and there's just not damage from Takeover and Tactical. They cannot get close enough. They have a lot of range, but they don't have so much range that they can hit over that wall.
May Chaos reign supreme if you are Immortals. That is what we're seeing right now. It's chaos. They thrive in it. The more disjointed these fights are, the more it plays to solo queue, Josh. The more it plays to solo queue, the more it plays to Immortals.
Yeah, and the more it plays that way, you know, Arrow's pretty darn good at actually taking these crazy fights, right? As long as he actually gets to get to the fights with both of his summoner spells up, he actually does a pretty decent job. The problem is he tends to get caught a lot before the fights, and that's actually been one of the things that has held Immortals back from winning positions, is, in particular, Arrow and Chad stand a bit too far forward, but Soul...
Soul looking to challenge Vital here. Vital has the Meganar coming up in just a second. So Soul able to burn that one down. Vital will not have it, and the rest of TSM are setting up towards this top side, so pressure all over the map. Immortals trying to find a point that they can attack, but it's TSM who are the ones who are actually planning for it with this top lane siege.
And as they take this down, Pretty should be able to wave clear fairly effectively, but there's not enough members there for them to do anything about it, and Soul should just run away.
Yeah, looking to get out. Cosmic Binding will get the stun onto Soul. He can't get the blast plant. Brilliant out of Vital, who just stands right on top of that and makes it way too hard to click.
Yeah, good job coming up from Vital. Just stand on top of it, prevent the blast cone from going down. That's a small play, Vital. Let's give him a big round of applause. But he needs to do that 2 or 3 more times before this game becomes even at all. They should be able to get some pressure, but they don't keep Soul dead long enough that he will not be able to participate in this upcoming Dragon fight. And I think that's why Immortals, they're trying to get this turret instead of actually going for the upcoming fight. This is definitely a spot where Vital, as he tries to take this down, he's definitely going to be really late to the upcoming Dragon, even after his teleport.
He doesn't even get the tower, will not be able to take that down. Takes the recall, Dragon's going to spawn.
And that's money.
All right, there it is.
Bank.
There it is. Minion's able to do the job, but as you said, it's a late recall, so it's going to be a late teleport. And TSM, understand that. Go right after the Drake. Do not hesitate. Take it down. Drake will go over to them, and that puts them at Dragon Soul Point.
Yeah, Soul not even having to teleport. Vital does get the team money, which is always useful, but now you are forced to play for the Hextech Soul. The Soul is so powerful. And TSM, you know, well, it's slowed down quite a bit. They're not picking out Immortals quite as much as they were in the first half. They're still taking away so many resources. Chad has not really been able to farm his jungle consistently in a long time, right? Pretty still, I mean, he's doing a good job actually farming. He's still over 10 CS per minute, but it's at the cost of the fact that Vital and Arrow are significantly behind in terms of the farm they're trying to pick up.
Now positioning coming out from TSM. Towards this Baron area, Immortals are positioning onto it as well. This is only the only objective left on the map right now. Dragon's going to be spawning in another 4 minutes. But with Immortals, let's think about this a little bit, right? If Baron is starting up, that's a choke point. That is a place where the Tempered Fate can come down. It is a team fight area for Immortals, but it's definitely going to be one that's going to have to be played perfectly.
Yeah. They have to be very careful, right? And we saw the difficulty that Surdy had on the Gnar, right? When he has to play this primary engage, it becomes very difficult. Right now, it's Joey. He needs to land those if he wants to try and set up the rest of the team for these fights. And so it puts pressure on Vital. And Joey's not landing the... Oh, man, the ultimates.
Tempered Fate.
Tempered Fate.
I got you.
Need to be a little bit less tempered, a little bit more angry, Joey.
It's not in the Fate.
Not in the Fate.
I tried. I died. Let's say we're going with that one now.
That should be a new just Fate skin.
Not in the Fate?
No, Tempered Fate.
Tempered Fate. Is it just him gold?
Just looks like he's in Zonia's the entire time.
Just looks like he's constantly in Zonia's.
That'd be very funny and very visually unclear. Please don't make it. And now TSM, as I set up, remember what we were saying, right? When Takeover has a pretty good early game, he tends to look pretty well the rest of the game. Now he's already 2-0-2 on 2 completed items. He does a ton of damage as he got an extra needlessly large rod on top of his Rabadons. And when he's in these positions, he tends to make some plays, right? We're starting to look at Takeover as the only surviving member of all of the TSM roster changes so far in summer. Now we're starting to see, or starting to look for why they kept him. We're starting to look for him to make these big plays in order to showcase why he's the developmental piece that they have chosen to hang on to this entire time.
Now in the bot lane, Soul and Mia looking to take down Vital. They will chase him as there is no flash available after burning it. He will be able to get underneath his tower, but still you're taking away engage tools from Vital. If he doesn't have flash, it makes it that much harder to team fight Mega Gnar.
With no flash on the Gnar, it's so hard to get on top of Zeri. It's so hard to get on top of Azir. Already pushed out. And remember, Pretty can't really hit them, right? Arrow can't really hit them. They're too short range. Both of them are too short range to actually try and get on top of Takeover and Tactical unless TSM overextend. And this is one of the things that we've been looking at with Pretty too, right? I've heard arguments, and Andy's probably going to be sad about this if we talk about it, that Pretty should be playing in LCS over Power of Evil. But, you know, this is kind of one of those spots where you ask, like, what do? They do very similar things a lot of the time. They're not necessarily going to always be the biggest carry presences for their team. And while Pretty's farming very well, we haven't really seen him this game, right? He's just off in a side lane getting a lot of money. But it doesn't matter how rich you are if you aren't able to hit the right targets.
Victor's not exactly a pick champion, right? You can get a lot of poke and get a lot of damage in. Yeah, if they face check you, I mean, you can have the same argument earlier that we had with Ayla walking into that bush, but when it comes to Victor, if we're making an argument here for what's better in terms of pick, something like Talio that we've had pretty on in the past before, doesn't have that same tool, doesn't have that same enabling.
Yep.
And this is the struggle right here for Pretty and the rest of Immortals because they can't get their power points to bring the damage to the front line of TSM, who have been controlling the map thus far and are looking to control it once again, setting up that vision control for this Dragon. But Immortals are going to be quicker to try and get an engage. Onto Tactical they go. A lot of damage to burn down onto him. And the kill is picked up by Pretty. Now TSM down a man, down your mid laner. Vital getting a little bit too close there, forced to burn the stopwatch to buy a little bit of time over the wall. Cosmic Binding going to land on to Takeover, but does not get the stun. The pressure coming out. TSM Soul over on that bottom lane, going after the inhibitor tower, and he will clip it right down. He's forcing Immortals to respond.
And as the inhibitor goes down, even if it gets straight for the Dragon. Ooh, Soul. Little stuck. Or is he?
Tries to turn it around. Actually, look at how low Pretty's getting. Look at how low Pretty's getting right underneath the Nexus towers. A Nexus dive from Soul will take down Pretty. And TSM take the team fight right to Immortals. Going after Arrow. A teleport coming out just to try and defend the base. But it's looking inevitable right now. TSM with Soul in that bot lane, able to show up and take down Arrow on top of it.
Crazy stuff coming through from Soul. It looked like he might have been caught out, but no, he catches Pretty. And yet again, Immortals, they grab the objective, but they lose so much more on the map. And now TSM feel confident enough to try and start up this Baron with 3 members dead of Immortals. They will do this so quickly, right? Azir will walk over. And now Chad, you've got to get yourself onto the board with these steals.
Chad, is he going to go for it?
It's too late.
Time is ticking, and he has been spotted. Baron down. TSM acquire it. Chad heading for the heals, but the heals are heading for him. Here comes the tempered fake. Blocked completely by Soul. Chad, the worst of spots to be as TSM grab the Baron. And now, it's just going to be formal work, right? It's just the paperwork, sign on the dotted line to close out this game.
Yeah, make sure you initial everything as you start going through. TSM
put heart on the eyes.
Total control of the game. We'll take another look at this. This is what we were looking at from Joey, right? Trying to find his way into these fights, finding the picks, and as Arrow finds the follow-up route, they eventually get the 1 kill that they need in order to feel confident to try and go for the upcoming fight. Even Vital, right, doesn't go too far. They make sure that they don't lose anything. But ultimately, I was looking at Takeover as the person who I thought was about to make a big play here in order to try and turn things around. His perfect setup, right? The developmental piece coming through. Tactical's already dead. Takeover's got a lot of gold. But no, it's the other rookie. It's Soul who makes the play onto Pretty.
And now TSM are looking to close out onto Immortals Progressive. There's not much left to be had out of Immortals. There's not much fight really left into them. I mean, sure, they scale, but this gold lead is already too big. Already towards that 12k point for TSM Academy. So they set up in the mid lane, set up in the bot lane, inhibitor down in the bottom lane, Immortals Progressive. They're just counting the clock, watching time go by before they get into game 2.
Yeah, if they had turrets to fight under, I would say that I felt like Immortals could try and turtle this out, right? They eventually will force TSM to dive them, but the map is already open, and suddenly TSM can play the finesse game. They can start moving around. They don't have to just dive where you are. They can pressure where you're not. And so Immortals, I mean, Vital, I said he needs to make a play. I think the time is well past that.
Yeah, let's just take a wide look at this base. Inhibitors down, there's only one more structure, and that is that Nexus Tower before you get to the Nexus itself.
Oh.
And these minions are going to be that hard to get into. A steadfast presence denies Vital. But there's the Magnar ultimate onto 3. Takeover's low, and so is Soul. But Arrow completely isolated out. Takeover sweeps them to the grave. A shutdown acquired as TSM. They might have lost Takeover, but they're taking over the base of Immortals Progressive Academy as they'll take game number 1. Just best of 2.
At the very end, Vital did what we were asking him the entire time. Let's try and find the play. Let's get multi-man Nars come through. They're too far behind. It comes out too little, too late, and TSM will eventually take this down and improve their score. we said if they won all 6 games and FlyQuest lost all 6, TSM could catch up. But now that FlyQuest have already won 2 games, the only thing that TSM can play for is which seed in the bottom 4 teams they are going to be playing up against in the amateur squad. And of course, you want to do better because it means you play a weaker amateur squad.
Now, I just want to say, off of that match right now, this is a TSM that I'm starting to feel excited about. I think on all fronts, we were seeing performances in every single lane, but more importantly, you know, we got to point out the solo lanes. Soul looked great over there, got the solo kills onto Vital, and popped off on a Nexus tower dive, my dude, to go and get a kill onto Pretty. Takeover as well, who played so well into that mid lane, having the Azir. Both of these 2 pieces came together for TSM, facilitated by the rest of the squad. On all cylinders, TSM were firing.
Yeah, it definitely feels as though Soul has gotten a lot of confidence out of his ability to play with the LCS after having worked with the TSM coaching staff. And again, it sounds like he's been working a lot with Hooney specifically, who he said has been the perfect coach, understands the experience, has a ton of player experience, right? He knows what you're going through, and he just knows what you're thinking about as well. And so as Soul continues to level up, we'll see how much more he can do in the rest of the series.
All right, game number 1 in the books, but we got a second game and a final game of the day just waiting to happen while our players get ready. We will go to our intermission right after this break. You're not going to want to miss it. Be sure to stay tuned.